the four horsemen means.
Here we are. We did it again. You asked for it. You got it. Don't be a buffoon. I'm Tony the Golden Pony Hinchcliffe, and this is another episode of the Store Horsemen. To my left, the evil genius Eddie Firth. Hello.
My hands are washed. My tickets are bought. I'm ready to go.
And to my right, the broken one, Matt Edgar.
Yep, here I am, putting back together what once was a Woken.
Broken, woken, spends his nights joking. And here we are, the State of the Union, stronger than ever. I'm wearing my Bray Wyatt gloves to prevent from coronavirus. I've been wearing a luchador mask to prevent against coronavirus. That's what a real wrestling fan does at these times. We use what we have to our advantage.
You know what I got? I got Rick Martel's Mister. I filled that with Purell and alcohol.
I love that.
I keep 2 Mr. Sockos on my hands at all times.
Right. Matt has the coronavirus. He's got it.
Weren't you patient one, Matt?
Anyway, business is booming in the wrestling world. Let me start off with a little rant. Before we get into this and that and the evergreen part of this show, let's talk about something topical that's bothering me.
Go for it.
All right? Now, sure, I consider myself a far end. People say, oh, he doesn't watch. People say, oh, he doesn't do this. People say this. People say that about me and my wrestling fandom. All right, first of all, you would neither if you had a schedule like me. Okay? I promise you this. You ain't fucking doing what I'm doing. All right? My life's different than yours, first of all. Second of all, I do watch a lot, and I follow closely, and I follow from afar and
Wait,
on
so
the
you
interior,
just canceled out the first thing?
which is and back
Let
and
him go,
forth,
Matt.
and it
Let him
goes
go.
both ways. I watch what
You
I
think
need
I have
to watch.
time to watch wrestling? Well, I do.
Right. I catch up where I can when it counts the most. All right? I'm not one of these doofuses watching Access 4 on channel 796, a must-watch fucking program, okay? I don't have that kind of schedule. I decide when those friends that watch things like that get to work, okay? So here's my point. Is all you jabronis out there that watch every single fucking thing, that think you have it all figured out because you get to sit around and Google Vince McMahon's fucking name all day. Let me tell you something. WWE is your daddy, okay? It's your boss. Without WWE, there's nothing else. Without Vince, there's nothing else. And you all better start bending the knee. You're not allowed to take the Lord's name in vain, right? That's a big religious rule. In wrestling, we should start to implement that. I'm so sick of going on social media and the few accounts that I follow that are of the wrestling world, hating on WWE, hating on the storylines, hating on this, hating on that. How about this? Shut the fuck up and enjoy the show. I just watched, what was the WrestleMania where Mick Foley and The Rock, and Rock was a bad guy, and they go back and forth, and The Rock wins. He has the recording. He makes him tap.
Oh, that's Royal Rumble 99.
Okay, I just watched that when I was in La Jolla this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, I had the WWE Network on the whole time on the TV in the lobby. So
nice.
between everything, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you something. I watched this match, and I implore you all to go back and watch this match that we all have in our heads as this unbelievable match because we watch it in retrospect. Okay? We think of these memories that we have, and Eddie always says it. The program has always sucked. There's these moments that seem better afterwards. We remember the great little glimpses. That's what gets us through. I watched this match. Watch how cool this audience is the whole time.
Yeah?
Cold as ice. Cold as ice. Nothing's happening. And they're smashing Mick Foley. And The Rock's a bad guy. What are they thinking? Who's writing this? What are they doing? They're burying their own product.
Yeah.
Blibbity blobbity. It's always been that way. We just remember Stone Cold stunning Vince over and over again because sure, yeah, that's the payoff. And sure, The Rock, we were wondering, why did The Rock smash this guy? Look at the audience. Don't even watch the match. Put the match on. Just watch the fucking audience. Okay? Well, I'm not even close. Not even close. Okay? And now, so we ask ourselves, ooh, if that was us, 3 out of the 5 people on this fucking show to go, no, I don't get it, they're doing it again, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, guess what that's set up, you fucks? That's set up Mick Foley eventually winning the fucking belt from The Rock, throwing a spear in the spinal cord of WCW, ending the Monday Night Wars because they made you want it, you fucking mark idiots. I'm coming out guns a-blazing, and I still ain't done. So let me tell you all something. When you all say, oh, they buried the Fiend, they did it to the Fiend, they ruined the Fiend. The only reason you care about the Fiend is because he's the fucking Fiend. And the only way the Fiend became the Fiend is because they buried Bray in the first place. They ruined Bray, and they use that as a storyline. You fucking nimwits. That's what you love about the Fiend, is, oh my God, Bray got ruined by these guys. They buried Bray. Now he's your favorite guy, and you don't know why. Well, I'm here to tell you, that's why. And let me tell you something else. Oh, they buried him. Why does Goldberg need the belt? Why does Goldberg need the belt? You ready for this? You fucking jabronis. Why does Chris Jericho need a belt? Granted, he doesn't have it anymore, but this guy just had the fucking AEW championship from its inception to how long have they been around?
About 9 months?
About 9 months. He's the only champion they had. You know how much older Goldberg is than Jericho? 3 years. You know how much longer Jericho's been wrestling than Goldberg? A long fucking time. So when you say a legend, what does this legend need a belt for? Why does WWE do this? You look like an idiot to me. All of you. This is not for one person. This is for all of the marks. I'm bringing the extreme left more to the right. I'm trumping this shit. I'm taking you Bernie people, and I'm turning you into conservative centrists here. Respect your elders, respect Vince McMahon, respect the process, and respect the WWE. This is the Store Horseman.
You're like the Alex Jones of wrestling.
Oh, are you kidding me? I've never been harder than I am right now. That is spot on. It is sit down and watch, enjoy it. Wrestling fans oftentimes come off to me the way Star Wars fans come off to me, which is very simple. Yep. What you're mad at is that you're not sitting in your parents' living room with them cutting the crust off your sandwiches and life isn't perfect, and you expect this entertainment to bring you back to the place, and when it doesn't, you blame the entertainment versus recognizing you're the thing that changed.
Yep.
And if you sit back and you watch it for the enjoyment of it, right? This coming from the guy who wears a suit everywhere he goes. I'm like, no, just be a child. If I was a kid, I wouldn't question any of this shit. I would just be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Go back to the first thing that you guys watched. Remember that thing probably wasn't that great to begin with. And then just sit back and be like, oh, this is happening. Because you're right. You never know where the Fiend is going. You never know where Goldberg is going. And a year from now, they might stumble on that exact thing where you're like, oh my God, here it is. This is where we were.
Absolutely. That's the payoff. Without a negative, people, there is no positive. Let me tell you something. I say it all the time. I'm in the Writers Guild. And when I first started writing in writers' rooms, and all the executives and this and that said, it's got to have a story. It's got to have a this. I go, no. All we need is jokes. Jokes. All you need is jokes. Guess what? One thing I learned. Think about that. A non-college fucking graduate going in, taking over writers' rooms, making the quality of the show better. I learned one thing, and that's that they were right about that. Arcs are everything. You need to flip it and flop it. You need to mix it up. You can't just, what we call killing. And by the way, perfect analogy for this is pure athletic wrestling with barely any storylines. Hint, hint, AEW. Right? Are the matches more entertaining? Are they longer? Absolutely. Sure, on a physical level, AEW has somewhat of a tight grip over WWE. But guess what? Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck if the boxing match 4 fights before Fury and Wilder went insane for 12 rounds. Because we don't know who those guys are. There's no story. No one gives a fucking shit. So everyone that's a hipster and that can't wrap their heads around what the fuck I'm talking about, let me just tell you, we don't even know if AEW can write stories yet. Just because you enjoyed one episode doesn't mean we have any proof at all of their long-term planning. The reason why The Fiend's amazing is because you watched him get buried years ago. This is his revenge. It all makes sense. Trust the system. Trust the writers. Enough is enough. Enjoy fucking wrestling. Stop whining. There's this thing now. We're all going to bury each other. Wrestling fans are going to ruin wrestling as it is. This is how it's going. They're going to ruin it. Us doofuses, us buffoons in our fucking 30s that take it too seriously. 30s and 40s. It's us. Because everybody wants to split. Everybody wants to be the cool kid. It's always the guys with fucking new sneakers that can't afford them that are telling me how great AE fucking W is.
I think it's also about taking
the guys with money in their checking and savings accounts all represent WWE.
I think it's wrestling's also so vast that at any time there was you take the good with the bad, you know? When you're talking about Mick Foley and then the People's Champion, all that,
I'm giving you all homework. You must watch this match again.
That around that time, fucking Mae Young was giving birth to a hand.
Yeah,
that's all in the same show.
That's the same time they did the empty arena halftime match between Rock and Mick Foley. It was within that same 2-year period. Mick Foley's challenger for the belt, the empty arena. They literally have it on during the halftime of the Super Bowl.
Wow. I mean, it is something that would happen today, and these people would lose. I quit. It's clearly a recording. People would have gone, oh, Vince, he did it again. He's losing his mind, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say. Oh, he's got dementia. We need Triple H to step in.
Do you know
Same old Vince. The fact that he moves you in such a negative way is exactly what you want. That's what made Daniel Bryan winning WrestleMania exciting. You doofuses.
To piggyback off of this, to bring it to what's going on right now, I've been having those similar feelings that wrestling fans oftentimes outdo themselves in terms of asking for what they want and responding to what they get. Explain to me in broad terms how Drew McIntyre's build for this belt, again, a very good contender if he's built properly, is any different than what we would have seen if it were Roman Reigns, where you have this guy coming out. What's the difference between the spear and the claymore at this point? What's the difference between his 2 or 3 moves and this very random character who's kind of playing it cool but isn't playing it cool but isn't bad but isn't good? He's a big, badass dude, and they've taken some of the things that we really liked about them, shifted them slightly. Everyone's still going nuts, but I feel like Drew McIntyre is 2 months away from everyone turning on him the way that they turned on Roman, the way they turned on Seth, the way that every time we get the thing that we want, we then immediately go into this. And I'll say we, because I'll lump myself in that because I don't separate myself from you guys as fans. I don't. I just look at you and I say, hey, calm down. Of course. Yeah, that's what it was. Like you said, the crowd was dead there. The Rock admittedly threw too many chair shots during that match. That's the one that is chronicled in Beyond the Mat.
Oh my God.
The documentary.
I mean, you can watch the clips of it. You can watch it on YouTube, this and that, but you need to watch the whole thing. That really tells the story. At one point, you can hear Mick Foley say, again, it's just disgusting. It's fucking brutal.
Yeah.
But more than anything, the end. The celebration, the end. I mean, it's right up there with fucking Lesnar beating The Undertaker. Yeah. I mean, not as far as like a jaw-dropping shock, but as far as the crowd being like, what the fuck did I just pay to see? What is going on here?
What do you think contributes to beyond the idea that we are all trying to recapture? Because nostalgia is the greatest drug. Nostalgia is better than sex. It's better than weed.
Without a doubt. I cover it all the time. The Undertaker's bell, his entrance, each one of those beats. I say it once every 3 weeks on this goddamn show. It's my favorite thing in wrestling, and that's why. Nostalgia is the drug.
What do you think has contributed to that turn where wrestling fans now do not necessarily give the opportunity to say, okay, we know what happened today. Let's see what the next 3 weeks, 3 months, 12 months look like to where we're going with the story.
Maybe it has something to do with the way media with the kids, like, you know, everything's like clips, quick clips. Mm-hmm. It's like the ADD. We built it, you know, like we all had. So like they want the glory now. They want the story now. They want it now rather than they just can't wait for the build. You know, it's funny you mentioned that, you know, Tim Ferriss, the entrepreneur or whatever. Triple H was on his podcast a few years ago. I remember listening Tim said something about how you get a lot of hate I see online from fans. He's like, yeah, wrestling fans, it's interesting. It's like they don't understand that everything is, the story never ends.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like we're booking ahead, so you don't even know what's going to happen.
Right.
You're already hating this thing that you have no idea where it's going to go.
Daniel Bryan talked about that same thing with Triple H about their WrestleMania 30 match, where it was that whole build with the Yes Movement where he kept getting held back and pushed and held back, and we didn't like who won the Rumble, we didn't like who didn't win the Rumble, and we always felt like Daniel Bryan should have gotten it. And Daniel Bryan, I think it might have been on Stone Cold's podcast, but he had mentioned at one point, he was like, what was weird to me was there were things that we specifically did because we wanted that reaction from people, and they didn't let it play out to see that was, like, we knew that was going to piss you off. We did it to get to the place we were going ultimately, but nobody was enjoying the ride. They were so concerned that I lost that match, or I got, quote unquote, buried in that instance to truly bring out what was going to happen later. But instead, they just turned on and got mad, and we weren't allowed to actually play the story.
A very great contemporary point, because if the whole Yes Movement would have never happened had he not been held down.
Exactly.
The Yes Movement was for a reason.
And look what that did, right? When did the network come out? When did that happen? All of this contributed to a boom, and that's a perfectly written storyline of a guy being buried. What everybody considered at the time, week to week, bad writing.
Also,
not giving the people what they wanted. You have to wait for that. That's a season finale. And again, this never ends. But our season finales are what? WrestleMania.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. And it's interesting how, like, you know, even Daniel Bryan, the wrestler, was such an indie darling, something that wasn't even, you know what I mean? His whole thing is being held down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if that never happened, you wouldn't have had those great moments. It kind of reminds me of Masvidal.
Yeah.
The resurrection.
Yeah.
You know?
Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
All of them. This is what you want, people. You want a Yen check this weekend. Undoubtedly. One of the greatest fights of all time. The only woman that almost reclaimed her championship ever in a real fucking fight. Goes 5 rounds, split decision, 49-48, 48-49, 49-48. Doesn't win, but it's about that. It's about picking yourself back up. That's a story.
There was victory in that defeat.
Oh, God.
There are so many instances of wrestlers and people who've worked with Vince talking about how when somebody heats up, he'll pull them back a little to test the crowd, to test the wrestler, to see what the reaction is going to be, and then heat them back up. Pull them back a little bit, heat them back up. Because, first off, if somebody is going to be a star, it's going to be undeniable, and it will ultimately sustain itself over the long haul.
Yep. It's another thing they don't give Vince credit for is evolving with the ever-evolving attention span over the years.
Oh, my God.
He's had to learn to step it up, move it quicker, because that's how we need it these days. It's like he's kept it afloat.
Yeah. I had a very pro wrestling thought the other day when Elizabeth Warren had to drop out of the presidential race, and I was like, this is almost better for her. It's almost better that she goes out now. She does this great little video with Kate McKinnon. She's blowing up. Her star power is up. When Trump wins at the end of this year, she comes back. She can win it in 2024.
Totally.
The rematch is where it's at. Like, you're building that long term. Like, get a little bit. Then she loses a little. Well, then in 2024 when she comes back and is running, now she's a superstar. Now we need to see her win. We need to see that presidency. We want the fervor even more, and that is pro wrestling. Oh, God, somebody said it, and they said the only business is show business. I forget where I heard that the other day, but I heard that quote. They said the only business is show business. It's all the work. It's all the build. It's all, and that's all carny. That's all pro wrestling.
Not everything goes according to plan, too. Some shit just doesn't sell.
Yeah.
Answer me, people. Answer me about the Goldberg thing. Goldberg doesn't need a championship? Then explain your Jericho. Explain it to me. I need to know how you rationalize Jericho not putting Omega over. How do you do it? Come on, hit me with it. What's your guys' rationale for that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
He's 3 years younger than Bill Goldberg.
Yeah.
However, and let me remind you, what the thing is here is that these are wrestling legends. Why would a legend need a belt? That's what people are saying. It's not even about age, right?
Right.
Jericho was Jericho long before we had any idea who Goldberg was.
Yeah.
So
It's a very obvious comparison where, and I'm one of the people, I think Jericho should have held that belt even longer. I think it should have been over a year. It should have been impossible. He should have been cheating. It should have been next to it. So when he finally then does get the belt take off, it's huge.
Right.
It's huge, like Goldberg beating Hogan in
the guy even had
Atlanta.
He had a whole stable protecting him.
Yeah, I felt it could have gone longer. And
and if you beat Moxley, that's more heat. If you start beating the heroes,
especially
you run through all of them. In a year, you could set up rematches or some new,
Because it's weird. I obviously grew up a Hogan guy, but my preference is a heel champion with baby faces chasing them. It's why I love Brock, because he's essentially a heel. Because either way, you're like, well, he's unbeatable. And then when you do catch him, you're like, God damn, I can't believe he got him. It doesn't matter who it is. Somebody catches him.
Let me tell you something else. It's not just me and you that are into heels. We learned this past year, something that I've known for a very long time. And I've been having this talk with Matt stoned in the alleyway for literally 12 years. Bad guys have always been where the party's at, okay? We just had this huge Avengers thing. Superman, Batman, this, that, boo, bee, ba, boom, boom, bing, bing. What just made $1 billion plus and fucking was nominated for almost every category at the Oscars? The Joker. The first ever true villain fucking film, except for Venom, which was hot diggity dog shit.
Yeah.
All right, but that's different because they ruined that. That just wasn't written properly. But the Joker comes and drops and fucking in a real movie with a real story and not just fucking one guy smashing a bunch of cronies, right? Comes out and dominates a movie field for mostly, the dumber people, like people that didn't see Parasite, whatever. People that couldn't
can't
keep
get
up
that
with,
movie out of my mind.
it's so good, it's crazy.
It's in there. That family's in my head now.
In that
It's so
same
good, it's
vein,
crazy.
you know what I rewatched the other day that I also really love was Uncut Gems, and it's the same thing. It's the story of this guy who just keeps fucking up, and it seems like in that movie, every 5 to 8 minutes, he does something else to fuck up, and you're both angry at him and rooting for him to just get the fuck out of his own way.
In fact, I'll even go one step further. Not only Uncut Gems, not only the Joker. Hey, how about this for a little theory? All the characters in Parasite are technically bad guys.
Yep.
They're all being sneaky. They're all using each other. It's a movie filled with villains. Being shady, taking these people that are giving them an opportunity and taking full advantage of them.
But those
all
people
bad
are
guys.
greedy.
Ready for this one? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
Almost all bad guys. We know that what's his name killed his fucking wife.
Right.
Yeah.
And he won Best Supporting Actor. Kills his wife in the movie with a fucking spear gun. We know it. It's in the movie.
Yeah.
Yet we're rooting for him. Leo DiCaprio, who we know in the movie is barely surviving as an actor, right?
Yeah.
He knows he's overrated. He knows he's in over his head, but we're rooting for him.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a villain, but still not a hero. This is what entertainment is now. It's finally flipped. Again, something we've been talking about Stone forever. We're finally starting to see the results. Just like I used to say, eventually they're going to be over all these fathead comedians. Eventually that's going to die out. Well, that's happening too. Unfortunately, diversity's a thing, so we got to play with that for another few years. But just wait until the straight white male comes back and you guys are ready for jokes again.
Yeah, we're pissed.
Yeah, wait till Louis C.K. He's back
At the Royal Rumble, the comedian Royal
how
Rumble.
great would that be?
By God!
3, 2, 1. Well, he's a jerk off.
No. 3, 2, 1, and Louis.
By God, it's Louis C.K.
It does it. I want to be a part of the community that just, and I don't say enjoys wrestling in spite of those things, but just sits and enjoys it. Even how I said this 1,000 times. One of the things that led me to this group was sitting in the belly room watching that SummerSlam together when you guys were doing the live podcast, because it was by all accounts a show that was not necessarily a top-rate show. If I had been sitting at home alone watching that show, I'd have been like, all right, it was a Sunday afternoon.
At least I'm home.
I watched some wrestling and I went on with my day. But we were together. The moments that we didn't love, we all didn't love together, but we didn't belabor it. We moved on, right? Didn't Roman beat Brock at that SummerSlam, and that was the one that we were all like, oh, I can't believe that happened. Whatever, we're having fun, we're together. I wish as a community, whether it's the podcast we listen to or the posts we make or the dirt sheets that we're reading, just allowed the product to be and recognized it for what it is and not begged for what it isn't, because I don't think any of the I think the greatest storylines in history are the aberration. They are the exception to the rule. They are not the rule. Yes, Hogan and Macho Man over that year build, you could probably go back and watch right now and you'd be like, okay, that's a good story. And you could talk about Stone Cold and The Rock's 3 years at WrestleMania, one of them being great, two of them being pretty good. You'd be like, okay, they had a great rivalry. There are these moments, but the rest of the television show built around it, I always go, the Attitude Era, we all loved it. What about the Right to Censor? That was horrible garbage. That was on
Same
TV.
time.
The oddities dancing around with Golga. I mean, come on, like either we're in this for the enjoyment. Either we recognize we want to be kids, so act like the kid, or
look, my thing isn't WWE over AEW. That's not really what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is respect Vince McMahon. Stop pretending. And when it's a good episode, don't say Heyman wrote it. Okay? You sound like morons. Morons. It's all Vince. It's still Vince. It was Vince. It is Vince. It's always Vince. It's gonna be Vince. Learn to love it. You already did. Relearn to love it.
Stop watching like you got money on it.
Yeah. And if you are, don't put money on it. It's pro wrestling.
Yeah,
but just my point is just respect the guy. It's like saying fuck our forefathers because now things aren't working out for us. What? No, America's strong as fuck. When Hillary lost, everybody in a panic. And there I was on the other side going, what? What? The president only controls this and this and this. I mean, it's really a country run by Congress, and you guys are complaining about who won instead of changing the system that made that person win. You're complaining about the wrong things. It's the same exact thing. You're complaining about the wrong things. You're complaining about writing, people. You don't know how to write.
Look,
write it better.
I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and I know not everybody here in this room even is going to agree with me on this, but one of my biggest defenses and issues with the heat that Roman Reigns gets is that the heat that Roman Reigns gets is purely the booking and writing of the character, not the person.
Right. Yeah.
And it is all put on Roman Reigns. And yes, Roman could change up his match style slightly, potentially, but I will go back and I'll tell you, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, John Cena, even that match with The Undertaker, he did everything he could at WrestleMania to make that good. Braun Strowman, these matches with Baron Corbin, right? We were at the Rumble. We saw half of that match inside and outside. That match was fun as hell to watch. They went nuts throughout that baseball park. Roman Reigns, the wrestler, Joe Anoa'i, whatever his name is, he's great at what he does. He's athletic. He moves. He tells stories. He seems imposing. Everything people hate about Roman Reigns is the writing. And if we're criticizing that, not only have we gone way too deep, but stop putting it on the guy, because what we're complaining about is writing and booking. So then what you should be doing is getting upset with WWE, which we do at times, but I feel like it's all been put on Roman. And it's like, no, Roman's good at what he does. He takes whatever he's given. He got taught a lesson by John Cena in that he got taken to school in that one promo, and then he fucking learned and he turned it the fuck around. You got guys like Jericho and other people praising Roman Reigns for his in-work ability, his athleticism. If I'm going to listen to anybody, it's going to be Jericho.
Fuck yeah.
If Jericho says Roman Reigns is good, I'm going to stop him and say, okay, let me watch him and let me see what Jericho sees. When I watch him wrestle Brock Lesnar, because that match at 31 was awesome until Seth Rollins came in and stole the belt. We all forget that match was looking pretty fucking dope.
Yeah.
Right? Roman Reigns is one of those guys where it's the writing and the booking that are being criticized, and somehow fans have convinced themselves, shout out to Eddie Torres, somehow fans have convinced themselves that it's actually Roman Reigns, that his moveset's no good, that he's over. But it's the second you say he's over pushed, then it's not him you have a problem with. Is he supposed to turn down? He's supposed to walk in, be offered a championship match with Brock Lesnar, say, you know what, guys, I don't think I've earned this yet. No, he takes the fucking championship match, and when he's handed the belt, he does everything he can to represent the company.
Because Roman was completely liked before that. It's when you say that, when you say like, you know, you're gonna listen to what Jericho says over any mark. It reminds me when I first started stand up. I'll be honest, I thought that there was times I thought Argus Hamilton was kind of a lame comedian, and Bobby Lee took me aside. Is like, no, dude, Argus is fucking great.
Yeah.
Like you're not looking at it right. Look all his new shit. That guy might write more new shit than anybody else on that whole lineup. He's the oldest by decades. And after I saw him in that light, I was like, yeah, Argus is fucking great. But the noob in me that just didn't get it, just saw it one way. But the pro that was like, no, dude, I can't. Argus is the real fucking deal. It's like, I'm going to listen to Jericho, Stone Cold. They all praise Roman Reigns.
Right, and that's my point with not just like I was a noob in the writer's room and I didn't know story arcs. And my point is, we are yet to see AEW's long-term writing. We haven't even been in position to judge it, right? Like people judge WWE because we don't know it yet. It's still a baby. It's an infant compared to any real weekly wrestling program that we're used to. No one cared about WCW until what? How long was that on the air until they got a real push?
I mean, that
10, 15 fucking
that
years
company
until...
struggled even after it signed Hulk Hogan. It
Right.
wasn't until Hall and Nash came over that really set it on fire. They were a decently middling Southern company that had a few TV shows on that we'd watch. Monday Nitro came along. It still didn't set things totally on fire, even though Lex Luger came over. Like,
And you know what they
Hogan.
had? You know what they had, though, that whole time? Was pretty much superior athletic wrestling. Those the WCW would fucking start guns a-blazing with goddamn Eddie Guerrero versus fucking Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, dude.
Guns a-blazing. So even they, I think probably in comparison to AEW, were physically fucking unbelievably aggressive, and more so, my point is, than the WWE.
Something that I focus on a lot in terms of what I consider is the difference between the best and the greatest. In terms of, if you just looked at the most obvious comparison in wrestling history, whether we believe this or not, they always say Ric Flair was the best, but Hogan was the greatest. Meaning the idea that the greatest is like that level up.
I think it's the opposite.
I kind of think so too.
Yeah.
I think of greatness in terms of the defining one. Like Hogan is the greatest wrestler of all time because he's the one that defines it. But Ric Flair, as a character, as a talker, as a wrestler, was better.
I think it's more technical. I think greatness. Ric Flair is the technically better.
Yes,
at every level.
Yeah.
Than Hulk Hogan. Now, did Hulk Hogan get more famous?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, we could easily do that.
So but this would be my point: is that the best usually isn't the one that gets the most famous, the most recognition. Like, do you know what I mean? Like the best. It's very rare that the best at the thing gets the notoriety. The one who's a little less
I
than
think
the
it comes
best
in
but
time.
has those other things.
I would actually argue. I think Ric Flair right now is way more famous than Hulk Hogan.
I think so too.
That
I
may-
think
that
time.
may
I
be.
think truth and time.
I think
met
that
up.
character certainly.
I think,
But I'll tell you this:
I think guys, especially our age, look at Hulk Hogan almost like a My Buddy doll. Like it's like, oh, I remember My Buddy
Yeah.
when I was a kid.
Yeah, the
that
toy
was a big deal.
He's the Woody from Toy Story.
Right.
My buddy.
But now it's that's a memory. Whereas Ric Flair's like a dude we actually want to be.
So
no one wanted to say
Ric
their
Flair
prayers
makes
and-
me laugh when I watch clips, and to this day, 34-year-old Matt laughs and
Yep.
is entertained by Ric Flair.
So my point in this instance would be that very similar to WCW in the late 80s, early 90s, where they had the better workers, the guys who storytelling-wise in the ring were better. Your Ric Flairs, your Arn Andersons, all of those guys. And the WWE had Coco Beware and Brutus Beefcake and all these. But WWE was greater. It was grander. It was on a larger stage.
Right.
Just because you have better wrestling quality-wise doesn't mean that the larger part of it is going to work.
Right.
And AEW right now is in the position, has potential to absolutely get those places. But just because Kenny Omega can do better moves than Braun Strowman can do does not mean Braun Strowman is not great in that place, and doesn't mean Kenny Omega is going to pass Braun Strowman in popularity, in drawing potential, in that career totality. Like that's what I think of great. I think of grandness and that scale.
You're saying the big picture but I'm kind of saying the whole picture. I mean, I'm looking at little details.
Long term, Terry Funk put on better matches than a lot of guys whose names we can remember right now. That's, you know what I mean? Like, the legacy is still, I still say it because we as consumers of entertainment or of anything don't necessarily want to see the biggest movie star in the world right now is The Rock, but there are 10 better actors than The Rock.
Can I also jump in right now and say something, because it hit me yesterday? I was driving down the street, and this time I saw Batista on a billboard by himself. And boy, if it didn't hit me like a ton of bricks, like now he's almost right. He's in that running more than like these guys are smoking Jason Statham. They're giggling him, Cena, and The Rock.
Roman's on his way. We better get ready.
He's got to look.
This has become a very real situation in which you used to become a big movie actor from working on Broadway, right? They'd find you on Broadway. They'd say, all right, let's tone it down. You're a little bit too big. You're used to performing for the stage. In this analogy, a ring. Let's dial it in. Let's focus on the little nuances. And that's exactly what's happening right now. It is unbelievable. Not only should we get ready for Roman, it's probably the ones we don't see. If we would have guessed back then, we wouldn't have guessed Batista.
Oh, yeah.
No. If I would have told you 15 years ago that Batista is going to be one of the bigger movie stars, and he's on his way up, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
He's farther along than The Rock was when The Rock started, right? Like, The Rock started, but it was like, it wasn't like this. It's a trajectory thing.
Are we talking age, or are we talking...
just experience in the movies. Like, The Rock still wasn't taken that serious. He didn't have his own movies.
Yep, you're right.
He wasn't the leading man until maybe 10 years ago.
Actually, it took him a while to find his footing.
Right.
And he went through different agents. He changed his hair. He lost weight. He gained weight. It was all these back and forth.
Fun times, passionate times. You guys chat, have fun. This is going to be a broken genius episode. I have to rush off to an unbelievably well-paying gig. I love you guys. I'm Tony Hinchcliffe. A lot of dates coming up. Ventura tomorrow. Coming to Boston, Austin, a bunch of other things, as long as they don't get canceled. Wash your hands. Take care of one another. I'm going to leave you with the great Eddie Firth and Matt Edgar.
Thank you, Tonesy.
Tony, you're the best, man. Thank you. That was an inspired promo and an even better lead into the conversation.
Came in fucking flaming.
I want to finish that thought about Batista with... I saw that same billboard for the movie I Spy or Spy, whatever it is, where he's with this little kid. It doesn't matter. And it felt to me like the movie The Rundown with The Rock and Sean William Scott.
Right,
and I looked at it and I was like, that's his rundown. He's going to do this little middle comedy. Like, Batista's building his career. I'm excited for all of them. I love that John Cena's in the new Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah.
I loved people's reactions to that, because this was an almost wrestling fan reaction from people that I knew who don't like wrestling. They were like, wait, John Cena's playing Vin Diesel's brother? We've never even heard about them. I was like, yeah, shut up. None of these movies matter. Yeah. None of this. You're telling me this is where you question the Fast and Furious franchise, the one that started with street racing and is now an international band of mercenaries? This is where you question it?
They're not used to wrestling logic yet, and show business in Hollywood's going to have to catch up.
You want to take a left turn now?
I do, and actually I liked what you put in that in the group chat today. I thought about it. What you wanted to talk about.
So one of the things that we definitely want to start doing here at the Store Horsemen a lot more is talking about the things that we do love. So we're introducing these top 3 segments as you guys have been listening. The one that I proposed to the group was our top 3 Intercontinental champions of all time, in honor of Sami Zayn beating Braun Strowman in a 3-on-1 handicap match to become a new Intercontinental champion.
A huge feat.
So, you know what I'm excited for? I'm excited for Braun Strowman's new catchphrase. Wash these hands.
Wash these hands. Yeah.
So who are you, Matt? Who are your top 3 Intercontinental champions?
Just the disclaimer is 2 I thought of immediately, and the third one is kind of still pending, because I kind of want to. We're gonna have a conversation about this.
I like
this. A few more I want to throw on the table, but immediately when I think of the IC title, first of all, I see the Attitude Era belt, the skinny one. Yeah. And I would put, I loved Benoit and Jericho. I loved their battle for it. I love how both of them had it. They were going. Benoit to me was my first heel that I really liked. well, maybe not because I like Kevin. I like the Wolfpack, but
Yeah.
he was one of those heels that like scared
Benoit
me.
or Jericho?
Benoit. I
Benoit,
thought like
yeah.
as a heel, he could ruin my favorite baby faces. Like I think he can make them all tap. And I was a Jericho-holic.
Yeah.
So when those guys met, I was like, oh, I was kind of worried about Jericho, and they would both, job for each other, and it was great fucking television back then.
Do you have a match or two from that?
Yeah, I love the 2 out of 3 match, the 2 out of 3 falls match in 2000, and I forget what the pay-per-view was, but it was Jericho Benoit, best 2 out of 3. I think Benoit got the first one, Jericho got the second one, and then Benoit got the last one, and he cheated with the knee brace. He hit him. He was in the walls of Jericho, and he took his brace off and was able to hit him, or something like that.
I love a good 2 out of 3 falls match.
Oh, me too. We don't see him enough.
I want to say SummerSlam 1990, Hart Foundation and Demolition in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the tag belts still stands out to me because LOD came down to the ring and distracted Demolition for one of the falls. 2 out of 3 falls match still stands out.
You know
in
why
my
we
mind.
like them, dude? Because they're the most realistic. It's like rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
And even though you kind of know you're going to go to the third fall, how it all plays out it's still one of the most logical progressions in that story. 2 out of 3 falls matches, when done right, because I know they put them on TV recently to try to avoid the commercial breaks.
Yeah.
And they didn't really work as well, but in a positive setting, a 2 out of 3 falls match gets me every time. A 2 out of 3 falls match gets me.
What do you? So I'm waiting on my third
so
one.
So Benoit and Jericho are both
definitely immediately the first people I thought of, and I'm just not going to budge on them.
Who's your third?
The third gets a little bit choppy.
Do you want to do any honorable mentions first? Because you can do honorable mentions, or you can go with the third and give me your honorable mentions.
I would say, honorable mentions would still be of that time. I just kind of liked the mid card more back then, and even that you had The Rock in the main card. But I think if it wasn't for them, I would have to. This is gonna. You know what? Could you do yours? I just want to give.
Okay. So the third one on mine is also kind of soft. I have 2 that I'm hardcore. The third is a little soft, especially after hearing it. Honorable mentions for me. First off, The Miz.
Yeah,
The Miz is full on honorable
definitely.
mention. The only reason I don't think I put him on the list is because I don't have specific matches, and this is more on me. I don't have specific matches that I would list because this is what I did when I thought of Intercontinental Champions. I was like, okay, what matches made it for me? What matches did they have that I was really... And for each of the others, I have standout matches where I'm like, that made that belt feel so fucking important to me. The Miz has some with Dolph Ziggler. He has some with... He's got some with everybody.
He was a great promo champion when he had Mizdow hold the belt for him.
Yes.
Are you talking about that era of him as...
I think Miz... Look, Miz is one of my favorite wrestlers across the board all the time right now. I think you could put him in a main event program right now and I would still buy him. The fact that he was a champion, his runs as Intercontinental Champion in a lot of ways made me feel like the belt mattered this time around because a lot of his promos to me are off the charts. That's why I'm kind of in between on putting him on the list. Only because I don't have that standout match. But like you said, his promos, stuff with Mizdow is great. His most recent run, going back even further, his runs. Miz is a great Intercontinental Champion, and I think could and would make another great WWE champion if positioned.
Absolutely. He should be champion. I think he's actually getting to the overdue point. And you know what? I bet I could guess at least 2 of your...
You can. Let me give you another honorable mention. I'm going to stick with the 3 that I thought of this afternoon. So my second honorable mention is Chris Jericho, because when you talk about that, his 9 Intercontinental Championship reigns, every different era he did it in, the
babyface and heel, like he's done it both.
Yeah, and he got great matches out of it. One of my most memorable Jericho Intercontinental Championship runs was in that, I guess, WrestleMania 20 to 23-ish range where he had like the sort of short hair, and it was like you really didn't. It was like that 2006 period. We really didn't know what was going on with the company, but he had this very memorable reign to me where I was like, oh, it makes sense. He and Christian had good matches for it. I think he and Christian had like a a ladder match to determine a new Intercontinental
this
Champion.
was kind of years after his undisputed run. So yeah. When he went back, I kind of do like that when champions go back to the Intercontinental title.
The same way Cena went back and won the U.S. title and had that secondary run.
That was a great run. The U.S. Open Challenge.
Oh my god! And he was putting. It was almost like Cena was like, "Okay, you don't think I can work? Let's do it every fucking week."
Do you remember who beat him?
Yeah. That was the great SummerSlam match against Seth Rollins. And no, it wasn't.
Alberto Del Rio came back.
No, it's both. It's both. John Cena and Seth Rollins had a match at SummerSlam. Both belts were on the line, and that's when Jon Stewart hit John Cena with the chair.
Right.
So Seth Rollins walked out of that SummerSlam with both the WWE and the United States title. And then like the next month or the next week, whatever it was, John Cena won the U.S. title back. And then
lost it to Alberto Del Rio.
In a surprise match that I was at. I think it was at Hell in the Cell.
Oh, no, you were there?
Yeah, because that was Brock and Undertaker in the Cell at Staples Center, and I was there. So I do remember Alberto Del Rio coming out, and I was like, oh, this was his surprise? Like, didn't really wow me. And he beat Cena for the belt. All right, I guess he's going to
I kind of liked it, though. I thought it was like, I thought he was about to get a great push from that, because I love Alberto Del Rio. I love that style.
All right, my number 3, I'm going to go in reverse order, 3, 2, 1. My number 3 out of my top 3 Intercontinental Champions of all time is Mr. Perfect.
Of course.
I think Mr. Perfect defined that belt as a heel champion.
Yeah.
I think obviously his great match with Brett at SummerSlam when he puts him over is phenomenal. I think his matches with Texas Tornado and Ultimate Warrior show how good he was to take guys. Anytime you take a guy who's not so good and you can remember their name, I call it the Magic Johnson effect. Because Magic Johnson was so great, you know Kurt Rambis's name.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? If Magic Johnson was so good, he made Kurt Rambis seem like a decent power forward. You put Kurt Rambis on any other team, you probably don't remember his name. He's probably not a Lakers head coach.
The spotlight was big enough for anybody around him.
And somebody like Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, made everybody look good.
That's a great one.
My number 2, my number 2 of all time is Shawn Michaels.
I knew it. Now we're going to get into Michaels and Brett.
Look, it's Michaels and Brett. They are the 2 greatest Intercontinental champions of all time. To me,
that's just like too easy, though.
I get that that's too easy.
I was using nostalgia.
That's fair.
Because
I get that. Here's why Brett's 1 and Shawn is 2, and I'll defend them.
I love this. All right, go.
1, Shawn as champion was both heel and face. He won it several different times. Almost every one of his matches is solid. When you talk about what matches stand out as an Intercontinental Champion, you have both of those ladder matches with Razor Ramon. And I'll go out on a limb. This is not a popular opinion. I preferred their second ladder match to their first one. They wrestled at SummerSlam 95 with almost no build. Shawn had the blue tiger pants on, and he beat Razor Ramon in a ladder match for the Intercontinental belt that I thought was an actual better, more compelling match than that first one they had at WrestleMania 10, which everyone says is one of the greatest of all time. They have both of those matches. He has the match he beats Davey Boy Smith for the belt on Saturday Night's Main Event. Great. The program with Marty Jannetty where he dropped the belt and won it back. Matches and program-wise, incomparable when you look at it out over time. He's got what was the other match that I thought of? He has a great run. He wrestles perfect, so. He wrestles Crush, so. He's got some really good stuff in there. On that second run, he goes with Jeff Jarrett, that match where he beats Jeff Jarrett for the belt. Great fucking match. That's a match that is actually known to be used as a study tape in NXT and FCW at Ohio Valley. That Jeff Jarrett, Shawn Michaels, their pacing, their fucking movement, they go crazy. Brett takes the number 1 spot because his matches and his run overall, he treated that belt and made it seem like it was the heavyweight belt. What are his great matches as Intercontinental Champion? Well, he puts over British Bulldog at SummerSlam in Wembley Stadium in 91, or 92, great fucking match. Everyone, incredible match. Piper and Bret Hart at WrestleMania 8 where he beats Piper for the Intercontinental belt, one of the greatest, maybe even the greatest Roddy Piper match of all time. When you look at that match, the story they tell, the actual match itself, and Roddy gets the bell, and we don't know if he's going to heel out. He puts it down, and that finish with the roll-up, like, great match. Everything he does against Shawn at that time with the Intercontinental belt. They have that weird ladder match that nobody ever saw or talks about that was on one of those VHS tapes you get. Bret Hart wrestles. Who else did he wrestle that I the matches stuck. Bret Hart, to me, his Intercontinental Championship run and reign was uncomparable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I knew you were going to pick those when you first suggested we talk about this.
Certainly,
I should have guessed you're going to pick Kurt Hennig too, or Mr. Perfect. But yeah, I guess I could agree with the Bret taking the number one spot there. But when we talk the big one, I give it to Shawn if it was between both of them, who was better champion,
like a
heavyweight champion.
That's look. That's certainly you know I can go back and forth. You know we could go forever. I will also say that sometime last year I went on a run where I watched the 3 matches Bret had against Diesel. Mm-hmm. There was one at a King of the Ring, a Royal Rumble, and a Survivor Series. If you watch those 3 matches back, that is an awesome storytelling run. Uh-huh. You see some really intriguing stuff between the two of them. From the early day where Diesel is the Intercontinental Champion, Bret's the Heavyweight Champion, only one belt is on the line. There's a non-finish. Then you go to Royal Rumble. It's another non-finish because Bret and Shawn and Owen and Bob Backlund all interfere. Jeff Jarrett gets in. And then finally they're at Survivor Series where Diesel's a heel. Bret's kind of heelish. He ties him up with the thing. There's the match where Bret takes the first table bump. He gets thrown off the apron into a table. It's all incredible. But Intercontinental, I think I would say Bret, as an Intercontinental Champion, Bret made that belt. Then Shawn took what he did and brought it to the next place with it. But Shawn came after Bret, and Bret really established it for me.
Okay, I feel you. My third.
Yeah, give me the third. We'll do the go home.
This is going to come out of left field, but it's got to be said because this is historic, and it also led to my second favorite Intercontinental title or champion.
Yeah.
I'd have to go with the one, the only, the ninth wonder of the world, China.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Now,
that is a really good pick.
She beats Jericho. She beats Jericho to no. She beats Jeff Jarrett to win it
in a good housekeeping match.
In a housekeeping match, which is so brutal. She had to actually do that. She had to take that seriously, and then to retain for a minute, and then Jericho was just the right kind of heel to lose to her. You know what I mean? Which is like then that kind of because at that time it's like Jericho's a mid-carder, but we're not really thinking of him as any kind of champion yet. He's still new to the company. Yeah. But once that happens, then he has that. I remember the night after he lost to China, there was that Raw. He wrestled Gangrel, who at the time was getting people over, you know?
Yeah.
And Jericho's just so messed up that he lost to a woman the night before. Mm-hmm. And at one point, he's like beating Gangrel. He's going to win the match. China comes out with Kat and distracts Jericho, and then he walks into a Northern Light suplex and gets pinned, and you see the defeat in his face, like his walk back up to the ramp. I remember going, it was like I felt it, like ooh, like he's gonna win the IC belt. He's not gonna. He can't go. Imagine if I lost a fight to a girl. You know what I mean? Like it was so dramatic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she's the only woman to ever win a title like that.
It really goes to show because there's so many people who have talked about whether they would or would not work with China, or they would or would not work with so-and-so. I'm of the opinion that, especially in show business, there's no bad job. That's why, look, we can talk about how Ricochet lost to Brock Lesnar, but I was like, look, you want to be in the match with the champion rather than not.
Yeah.
Even the worst case scenario, if it doesn't go well, our job, especially as comedians, our job, if the audience sucks, if the night is rough, if we don't have our shit that night, whatever, you make the fucking best of what you can. If you're called last minute and you couldn't prepare, whatever the fucking case is, it's our job to do everything we can with what we're given.
Yeah.
And if you're called on to do the thing where you can either say, I don't really like this, I'm not going to be into it, you can say, I'm going to make this as good as possible. It's part of a larger career. Jericho is still... Did losing to China hurt Jericho's career? Did working with China hurt Jericho's career? Or is he still working today? Did he just drop a major championship? Is he not touring the world with Fozzy? Does he not have his own cruise ship and his own champagne, a little bit of the bubbly? Like,
He's changed wrestling so many times at this point.
And the side of it is to say, I'm going to do it. It's not, if it doesn't work out, I'll move on from it, but I'm going to make it the best that I can.
Yeah.
There's no bad job in the industry. I don't know how many times you have those moments where you think to yourself, like, am I really going to do this gig? Am I really going to take this job? Am I going to do this YouTube video? Am I going to, you're like, yeah, because it's part of a larger career. You never know who's going to see that thing. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know how it's going to work out. It is a longer process than you can ever imagine.
Ripple effect.
And if Jarrett had issues with that match, where did Jarrett go?
WCW.
And the rest of he had a good career, but the indicator of Jericho
He
saying
took over WCW for a minute.
and look,
But it
and
was
he
a
had
broken
impact.
WCW.
But I would say if you compare Jarrett's career and Jericho's career, I would take Jericho because his attitude is what got him to that place, which was, you want me to wrestle China? Then let's make this fucking great, and we're going to do it. It's going to be awesome.
You don't want to lose to her.
I mean, who wants to lose
Who
to
would want to do
anybody?
that? So yeah, I mean, I would have to go that. It was
That's
just
that's a very good
set
pick.
him up, and
Yeah.
and like to me, it was the first time that like I had sympathy for a heel.
Yeah.
And then when he aligned with China, he became such a great baby face.
Yeah.
And then my favorite Jericho run is 2000 babyface Jericho going back and forth with Benoit for the IC title. Jericho's is the Jerichoholic, the Raw is Jericho. You know, like that to me was like my favorite time of Chris Jericho, and that was all IC title mid card.
I don't remember.
And I was there. I had the honor of being there when he became undisputed champion.
Oh shit, that was up in where was that in
San
San Diego? I don't remember. I'm not even going to bother looking it up. You guys who are listening to the podcast can scream at me right now whether it was or wasn't. Just yell in at your ear pods right now. WrestleMania 17, Jericho and William Regal. He peed in my coffee, right? Was that for the IC belt? Because that match is one of my favorite matches.
I get confused because they had these dumb things too. Jericho is so great that he made everything kind of entertaining. Because I get that confused with. I forget what pay-per-view it was where Jericho spilled coffee on Kane.
Oh yeah,
and it's set up like an I Quit match or something like that, or
one of my favorite Jericho matches. I'm going to pretend in my head one of them had the IC belt, but Jericho and William Regal. Who could not watch that?
Oh, you know what, dude? William Regal's a great IC champion, also.
I mean, look, honorable mentions to William Regal. Honorable mention to Kurt Angle. Yeah. Honorable mention
Kurt Angle, having the European and the Intercontinental. Just
honorable
like
mention to
D'Lo
Owen
Brown.
Hart.
Owen Hart, yeah.
The Rock, Triple H, and Stone Cold all held the belt.
Yeah.
The Rock versus Triple H, it's SummerSlam 98. Ladder match at Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
Triple H's knee legit hurt.
Yeah.
Great match.
Yeah.
He wins that match because Rock
trunks.
is going on. Yep.
Yeah.
Long purple trunks. I'll go you one further. That's how autistic I am on that one.
Damn.
I can remember the purple trunks.
And you think about that, a year later, he's going to be Triple H becomes world champion at SummerSlam, right?
And
triple threat match versus
I believe that's a year later. Yeah.
The
because
Rock and
The
Mick
Rock
Foley.
loses the Intercontinental Championship belt there. Only to be propelled to get, and I think that was because if that's
because
SummerSlam
that Mania,
98,
he goes against he's a corporate champion.
Because SummerSlam 98, and this goes back to what Tony says, SummerSlam 98, The Rock loses the Intercontinental Championship belt to Triple H in a ladder match in Madison Square Garden. By Survivor Series 98, that's when they had the tournament, and he wins the World Championship belt and turns on the fans and becomes a heel in a single night and blows up even bigger than we thought he was to go into the WrestleMania against Stone Cold. Let's preview next week. I liked what your top three would be. Let's preview it now so that fans can chime in on Instagram and Twitter. What the top three for next week?
It's you know what? So I wanted to split this in two. I was going to say best women's champion.
Let's do it next week. So
let's do that one.
Tweet us, find us on Instagram. Tell us what your top three women's champions
women's
of all
month,
time.
Everybody.
So that we can be topical and serve all masters and make sure that we don't get canceled. Tell us who your top three women's champions of all time are. I've got a couple in the running already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some that I think are obvious, some that I think might not be obvious. I want to go back and watch a few things and try to narrow it down.
Yeah, I'm afraid to be
you.
hacky about it, but I'm digging deep. But I have more than three right now.
Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'll be in Bakersfield. on the 21st, I'm doing Tembler Brew Co. Guys, please come be a part of this beautiful door deal I get.
Nice.
That's me and Rachel Wolfson. And follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Matt Edgar. I have some more dates up there, and I put a lot of stand-up videos on. Matt has 1T in it.
Follow me on Instagram at I am Eddie Firth. I'm very rarely on Twitter because I care about my happiness. April 22nd, 10:30 p.m. in the Belly Room here at the world famous Comedy Store is Historical Roast. We haven't announced what it's going to be, but I believe it's going to be live on Wednesday night from the Belly Room. You'll if you know what I'm talking about, then you just picked up on the clue. But check us out Wednesday, April 22nd. Follow at Historical Roast and at Fictional Roast. Exciting TV news coming soon. This has been the Store Horsemen. Holler if you hear us.
Yeah, I think that's how it goes.
Oh, that was such a great episode.
Great episode.
To start with Tony as hot as he
You know, like some deal fell through or something. You know what I mean? Like he just needed to blow some steam.
But that worked perfectly. And then to lead into that